Hey there, I see you. I see that weight you're carrying, the frustration you might not even have words for, and that love you so freely give, you don't think it's going to come back to you. You're feeling a little stuck right now. You don't quite know how to deal with that person that you care so much about. And life, well, it just keeps lifing, right? I'd like to invite you to stick around and let's have an honest conversation. A conversation about these patterns we've inherited, this pain that we have lived through, and more importantly, the changes that we are ready to make. This is your space, and I'm glad you're here today. Welcome to the conversation. I'm Felicia. I want to talk about something that weighs heavy on so many of us, but we tend not to talk about it. It's something I've seen in my own life and in the lives of the people I love, and in so many others who feel trapped in these cycles that they just can't seem to break. It's that unprocessed pain that so many men carry. Those emotional struggles that they've been taught to just bury. And how those struggles ripple through their relationships, their families, and even themselves. I saw this firsthand. My father was always overwhelmed and frustrated and usually turned to anger. It wasn't just like frustration about one thing. It was a buildup of everything he didn't know how to express. And then, in my own marriage, I saw echoes of that same pattern. My husband, carrying the weight of his military experience and all that unresolved trauma, would sometimes channel that pain into anger. It wasn't who he wanted to be. It was just all he knew. And this isn't just my story only. It's the story so many of us actually share. We watch the men we love carry pain that spills over into their lives, into our lives. We see the toll it takes on the families, the silent wounds, and how it affects the children, the cycles of trauma it creates. And often, as women, we're left to bear this emotional aftermath, feeling helpless, hurt, and unsure of how to move forward. I'll be honest, these patterns don't start with us. They're rooted in generations of conditioning. This idea that men have to be strong, stoic, providers, and nothing more. Emotional vulnerability? Yeah. Feelings? Those were to be buried. All of that was a sign of weakness. And so, men learn to suppress. They learn to mask. They learn to hide. But suppressed emotions, they don't just disappear. They manifest as anger, frustration, and even self-destruction. We have generations of women that were taught to overlook this, to be silent, to endure, to just be the glue that holds things together, no matter what the cost to their own well-being. But that silence didn't solve anything. All it did was allow the cycle to continue. And now, even in today's world, we see younger generations struggling, men and women growing resentful of one another, relationships breaking down, and emotional disconnection becoming the norm. I'll be honest here, loving someone who is stuck in this pattern is one of the hardest things you can endure. You see the pain they carry. You see their struggles, and yet you are the one that feels the impact of all their unresolved emotions. It completely breaks your heart to love somebody so deeply, only to be met by these walls of anger and indifference. It is a horrible feeling knowing that the person you love is fighting a battle and they don't want to let you see it, let alone let you help them fight. But here's the thing. We are at a turning point. Awareness is growing. And when it comes to an opportunity, a responsibility to change, men can no longer sit in their comfort zones, clinging to these outdated ideas of masculinity. It's not enough to say, that's just who I am. If you want meaningful relationships, if you want to build a life of connection and love, then you gotta step up. And don't get it twisted. This isn't about blame. It's about growth. It's about taking a hard look at these patterns we've inherited and deciding to do better for yourself and for those you love. The truth of the matter is that women are waking up to their own power. We are no longer willing to shrink ourselves to accommodate dysfunction. If you want to stand beside us, you gotta be willing to meet us where we're at. Right here, right now, in this moment in time. Now, don't get me wrong. Growth is not easy. It requires vulnerability, a lot of self-reflection, and the courage to face your own pain. But what's on the other side is so worth it, I promise you. When you do the work, you open the door to something that is so much greater. Real connection, true love, and a relationship that thrives instead of just surviving. This is the path forward. And this is going to be the path that we will decide to take because it is so worth taking. As a woman who's stepping into my divine feminine completely and fully, I see these patterns now. I get it. I understand that many men are just simply playing by the rules that were set long before our time. But the times are changing, and so must they. The old ways of suppressing emotions, of masking this pain with anger, it no longer serves us. And all of these beautiful women who are waking up to their true nature, they're deciding that they no longer want to be a part of these cycles. They're saying, I'm sorry, peace out. I'm not doing it. Let me be clear. This is not about pushing men away. This is about inviting them to just rise with us, to grow with us, to create relationships built on mutual respect, understanding, love. And I'm talking about real love here. Not the Snow White, Cinderella, fairy tale type of love. Real love. Real connection. So what are we talking about here? It comes down to this. If a man truly wants connection, if he really wants to build something sustainable, meaningful, then he's going to have to be willing to grow. He must be willing to step outside of these inherited patterns and do the work to expand emotionally. Because staying stuck in anger and resistance doesn't just push everybody away, it isolates him too. For generations, women have carried the weight of these issues that we're talking about today in silence. It was like this dirty little hidden secret, the unspoken reality behind closed doors. Our mothers, our grandmothers, and countless of other women before them often taught to overlook emotional struggles of the people that they loved. They were told to just endure, to stay quiet, and to make do with the anger and the outbursts and the distance. They were taught that it was their role to hold things together, no matter the cost to their own well-being. Even now this happens. Women sit with the weight of loving someone so deeply, while at the same time being brought face to face with his demons. It's a horrible feeling, loving somebody so much and just wanting so badly to connect, and yet being met with this unprocessed pain and anger and unresolved trauma. It's heartbreaking, it's exhausting, and it's not sustainable. The days of expecting women to be the emotional fixers and the nourishers and the ones that hold everything together, it's over. The women are waking up and they're finding out their own strengths, and they are no longer willing to stay in these spaces where they're not seen, they're not heard, and they are not valued. Listen, I've watched men I love try to outrun their emotions through work, drinking, or even just completely withdrawing and shutting down. My husband, after returning from his military service, was emotionally battle-worn. He didn't need fixing. He needed safety. But how do you create safety when society tells men that they're not allowed to feel? His internal war became our shared experience, one we both had to heal from. I realized that expecting someone to give what they were never taught is like asking an empty well for water. It leads to exhaustion, resentment, and isolation. This isn't about individuals, it's generational. I've seen young men today angry at the world, angry at women, angry at themselves, without even knowing why. They carry inherent wounds from fathers and grandfathers and systems that never showed them how to connect. This resentment festers. It becomes a pattern of emotional isolation or control. It's not just personal, it's cultural. When we don't address the root cause, the pain multiplies, spreading into relationships, communities, and over entire generations. I've sat with friends who feel like strangers in their own relationships, disconnected from their partners that they love so much, but feel like they can't reach. He shuts down, they say. He's there, but he's not there. I've felt that emptiness too. And there's an ache that comes from being unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. Relationships cannot survive on emotional droughts. But many men are operating in survival mode, never taught how to emotionally be present, because presence requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is what they've been told makes them weak. Society tells them to be strong, provide, don't cry. But the strength isn't about suppression. It's about resilience through vulnerability. Strength is being able to admit to the person you love that, yes, I'm scared. Or, hey, I'm asking for a little help. Or saying, I don't know how to fix this, but I'm willing to learn. The longer we cling to all these outdated ideas of masculinity, the more disconnected men become, not only from others, but from themselves. My turning point came when I realized that I couldn't heal anyone else. I could only heal myself. When I stopped trying to fix and rescue and endure and started creating boundaries that were rooted in love, something shifted. I didn't expect it, but my healing invited healing in others. I didn't have to force or demand it. When you create safety within yourself, that radiates outwards. You see, compassion starts from within, and it's something we can all learn no matter how we were raised. I know this isn't an easy subject to talk about. I've lived it. I've seen the pain it causes, the families it tears apart. But I've also seen what's possible when we choose to break these cycles, when we choose to heal, and when we choose to grow. This is an invitation to do just that, to reflect, to expand, and to create a new way of being, a way where love and connection and emotional safety are at the center of our relationships. The world is changing, and we have the power to change with it. So, we can take these steps together. There is an absolute beauty in this moment. We are standing at a real opportunity for transformation here. Men, this is your chance to rewrite the narrative, not just for yourself, but for relationships you hold dear. There is power in vulnerability. There's courage in reflection and liberation in growth. It starts with acknowledging the hurt, having those hard conversations, and learning how to feel, connect, and show up for ourselves and each other. Men, you don't have to stay trapped in anger and hurt. And women, you don't have to keep enduring it. We can break these cycles. We're not going to do it through blame. We have to do it through some type of understanding. What we see happening right now is more and more women are choosing to walk away from these surface level relationships. Even in long-term marriages, they're walking away because they see that they have more worth than this. They're realizing that love is about more than just showing up physically. It's about truly showing up emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And they are no longer willing to settle for less. But this is not a conversation I want to have about endings. It's about new beginnings. This conversation today is about creating the space for real, meaningful connection and healing, not just for men, but for women too. So let's talk about it, because the changes we're seeing now are a call to grow, not retreat. As I look around at the younger generation, I see something scary. I see contempt when they speak about one another. And contempt is considered one of the most destructive elements in a relationship. It erodes trust, respect, intimacy, and usually leads to further conflict and just complete breakdown in communication. Contempt usually stems from those feelings of resentment and being unappreciated, or a sense of power imbalance in the relationship. Look, the truth is, the pain that we see right now, the anger, the resentment, the disconnection, it's a reflection of the cycles that we've all been a part of. But cycles can be broken. We right now have the power to choose differently. We can heal, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come after us. It's not easy to face the truths within ourselves, to do the work of growing and expanding. but it's the only way to create love, real love, connection, and safety, the safety we are all longing for. So if you're still here and you're still listening to this and you're feeling that pull, know that it starts with one step, one moment of self-awareness, one act of compassion, one decision to show up differently. Remember, this is not about blame. It's about breaking free. Together, we can create a new narrative, one that is rooted in mutual respect, emotional depth, and real, authentic love. You are a part of this shift, and you are needed. I want to thank you so much for being here and for being brave enough to look within. Let's rewrite the story together, not just for ourselves, but for our families, for the future generations. The cycle, it can end here. It could end with us.